Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear friends and participants. Welcome to this session of Quran 14 series. So we have started studying the text of the Quran since our last session. Before that, we have been studying various topics found within the Quran. And since the last session, our effort is that the text of the Quran is studied more closely. And if you remember, we studied Surah Qamar in the last session. And today, inshallah, we'll take up another surah of the Quran, which is Surah Qaf. This is the 50th surah of the Quran. And before I begin the textual study of this surah, just a small reminder of something that we have already studied in our previous sessions, and that is that in order to enjoy the Quran, in order to understand the Quran, in order to really look forward to a reading of the Quran, you have to be conversant and you have to fully know what the theme of the Quran is, what exactly the content of the Quran is. For otherwise, what happens is that when we go into the book of God with some preconceived notions that this book must have this and this, and we fail to find what we had conceived, it often ends up in disappointment. And I have discussed it with many young minds like you, and I found out that one of the reasons that put off youngsters from reading the Quran, other than, of course, the drive that they have to find out what God has said to them and maybe how their parents uh, uh, they actually ask them to read the Quran out of their own willful wish. Uh, One of the things that at times is not understood correctly and which stops them from a regular reading of the Quran is that the theme of the Quran is not fully understood, and the topics that you find, which of course relate a lot to history, history of the Israelites, history of the Prophet, history of the previous nations, and there's so many things which are specific to a certain era that one tends to think that the Quran is speaking about certain nations and their attributes and their traits, but the relevance of the Quran with today's world is brought into question. So there are students who might not say this on the face of it, but inside they do feel that as far as the Quran is concerned, it seems something which it seems a book which is discussing certain details which are not exactly what we are fully aware of, and it's more like studying history. And then again, there is another thing which is sort of a setback, I would say, if we don't understand what the Quran actually is all about in reading the Quran. And that is that a major part of the Quran deals with idolatry, with polytheism. And today, especially people of the Abrahamic faith, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, they are all monotheists and they are very well connected to one God, even though there may be certain deviances in their connection with God. But primarily, the Quran that they are studying today has a lot of idolatry, a lot of polytheism which it deals with. And of course, we have to realize that in the times of Prophet Muhammad, when the Quran was being revealed, idolatry was the talk of the town. It was the call of the day. It was something which was discussed far and wide. Scores and scores of idols were placed in the holy house of God. Each tribe had its own god, its own deity, and they would invoke these deities. Of course, they also believed in God. It's not that they did not believe in God. The Allah, or the God of the Quran, was their supreme God as well. But besides this supreme God, besides this final God, they had other deities about whom they thought that they will intervene with the Almighty if there is a day of judgment. In the first place, they never believed that there's going to be a day of judgment. And in the second place, they thought that if ever the day of judgment is going to come, then their deities, their idols which they worship, they'll save them from God. So you see, we find these historical references in abundance in the Quran. So if you have to really enjoy the Quran, if you have to study the Quran, you need to understand that this is the background in which the Quran talks to you. And during this conversation, during this narrative which the Quran has put forth, of course, there are so many things which relate to human beings. The Almighty talks to us vis-a-vis the final divine law which the Prophet Muhammad had brought and which he communicated to his people, and of course the wisdom of the religion, which primarily relates to faith and morality. So we have articles of faith, for example, the fact that all the things that we are required to believe in, like the hereafter, like the prophets of God. We have never seen the prophets of God. We have never seen God Himself. We have not even seen the hereafter. I mean, this is just a idea or a belief. So what the Quran does is that it tries to substantiate, gives reasoning that why should we believe in one God and why is it that there is going to be a day of judgment. So you see, in these areas, the book of God links up to us. And then another thing in which the Quran talks to us and which is directly relevant to us is that the morality that we have in ourselves, uh, the, the concept of ethics, the concept of good conduct. The Quran says that this is something which is already found in human nature. All of us know about it. And when the Quran mentions these things, the purpose of the Quran in mentioning morality is not to give a list of ethics and morality for the first time, because the claim of the Quran is that as human beings, all of us know what morality is without being externally informed. Our conscience is sufficient. The awareness of good and evil has been invested, has been given to every human being, and all human beings, wherever they are, regardless of their religion, know what right and wrong are. So when the Quran speaks of these rights and wrongs, it's not primarily to inform mankind for the first time that these are rights and wrongs. No, it says that you already know them. But the purpose of the Quran in mentioning rights and wrongs is to remind us that we have to stop from these and adopt these. So this is how the Quran proceeds. So if you have this background in mind that the Quran is addressing a certain people in the times of the Prophet, and then again there is a division that might be helpful in understanding the Quran, that the Quran that was revealed in Mecca primarily addresses the nation of the Prophet, which are the Ishmaelites, which are also called the Quraysh, the idolaters of Arabia, and two-thirds of the Quran can be safely said relates to them. It relates to their polytheistic beliefs. It relates to their various innovations as well and their wrong beliefs as well. So the Quran sets about in correcting them. So in the Meccan Quran, or the Quran which was revealed in the city of Mecca, you'll find that basically the idolaters of Arabia, the polytheists of Arabia, the idol worshippers are addressed. And the surah that we're going to study today, which is Surah Qaf actually, also belongs to the Meccan period. It belongs to the Meccan tenure of the Prophet. So when we study the surah today, you'll find out the beliefs that are being discussed in Surah Qaf, which is the 50th surah I just mentioned, relates to these idolaters and how they would deny the day of judgment. You see, there were certain contradictions in their beliefs. In the first place, they thought that there's not going to be a day of judgment and this world is all that there is. And then, whenever they would be pressurized and whenever they would, think that, well, there is going to be a day of judgment and they would be led to believe into it even for a moment or so, they would always make this excuse that, okay, if there is going to be a day of judgment, then our deities are going to intercede for us and they are going to save us from the Almighty. So a major part of the Meccan Quran deals with the idolatry. On the other hand, a major part of the Medinan Quran has two themes. One of them that it addresses the people of the book, the Jews and Christians, because the Jews and Christians resided mostly in Medina. They did not exist in Mecca. I mean, there were small pockets. There could be small pockets there, but primarily the Jews and Christians, they lived in Medina. So when the Prophet migrated to Medina, that part of the Quran, which was revealed in Medina, spoke to them. It talked about them, and it talked about their innovations as well. It talked about the idolatry they had also inflicted themselves into. For example, they had made Jesus the Son of God. That's the case with the Christians. And as far as the Jews are concerned, the Jews of Arabia, especially, we are mentioning the Jews of Arabia, they had made Azra the Son of God. So both of them were guilty of ascribing a son to God. Remember, this is not the belief of the mainstream Jews. Mainstream Jews they don't regard Ezra to be the son of God, but the Jews who were living in Arabia, they regarded Ezra, the prophet Ezra, of course, who is called Uzair in the Quran, to be the son of God. And the second theme, which is you'll find discussed a lot in the Medinan surahs, is that because Muslims had been instituted in the form of a community, so you'll find a lot of directives being given to them regarding their collectivity. For example, relating to their marriage laws, for example, relating to the laws of war, laws which relate to their dietary consumptions and all these. So you'll find the Medinan surahs actually uh, presenting certain directives to the Muslims. So if I summarize, I can say that the Meccan surahs primarily deal with the idolaters of Arabia and their idolatry. And the Medinan surahs deal with the people of the book as well as the Muslim community, which was now instituted under the leadership of the Prophet, because Prophet was the head of the city-state of Medina. And being the head of the city-state of Medina, of course, a lot of collective directives are given in the Medinan surahs. So as we study the Quran, as we go along with the study of the Quran, we'll be studying both the Meccan surahs and the Medinan surahs. But the bottom line here is that we need to understand that the whole theme of the Quran revolves around this final warning of the Almighty given through His last prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to His people, that if they don't mend their ways, they'll be punished in this world, and this punishment is going to be a rehearsal of the punishment that's going to actually inflict them in the hereafter. And this punishment in the hereafter is going to be something which is going to be faced by each and every individual. So now we begin with this background, a study of Surah Qaf, and I do think that if you keep this background in mind, hopefully the part of the Quran that we are going to discuss and study today will be make much more sense to you, will be more relevant to your studies, so that you know that today you are reading a surah of the Quran which was revealed in Mecca, in which the Prophet was doing his ministry, he was delivering his message to the idolaters who were there. The idolaters believed in several gods. The idolaters primarily did not want to believe in the day of judgment, but when they were forced to accept it, they always said that they're going to be their deities and their idols there who would save them from God. So I had to discuss this in slight detail so that you are all able to grasp the Quranic part that we are going to study today. And as I said, that our study today is going to be the surah of the Quran, which is the 50th surah. This is Surah Qaf. One thing also that I'd like to tell you before I start off is that there are certain surahs of the Quran, as the one that we're going to discuss today, which begin with these abbreviated letters, these isolated letters like Qaf or Swad or Yasin or Alif Lam Mim. So remember that these are basically the names of the surahs, and they have been kept by the Almighty. And a vast majority of our scholars agree that they are names of the surahs. And it's only today that this view has become more popular, that these are words about whom we have no idea and we don't know what they are. Of course, we know what they are. They are names of the surahs. The only thing that we are still researching is that why are these names kept so? And there is a theory for that as well, but I'll discuss that later on maybe. So do remember that as far as these letters are concerned, they're called the disjointed letters or the isolated letters because each letter is pronounced separately. So Alif, Lam, Mim, Ha, Mim, Ain, Sin, Qaf, Ha, Mim. So all these are, there are almost 29 surahs of the Quran. In fact, there are 29 surahs of the Quran which begin with these letters. In all, we have 114 surahs of the Quran, and out of these 114 surahs of the Quran, 29 of them begin with these disjointed letters, these isolated letters. And as I said, all these are names of the surah, and they have been kept by the Almighty Himself. And other than that, other surahs which do not have these letters, they are named by the Sahaba and at times by the Prophet himself, and they have become famous by the names that they have kept, these people have kept. So we will discuss them also whenever they come up. But today, as I said, we are going to study Surah Qaf, and the reason that it is called Surah Qaf is, as I said, that it is the name of the surah. And also another thing that I'd like to introduce before we study is that in the Quran there are oaths which are sworn by certain objects. Like for example, you have the right here the word Wal Quran al Majid, and the wow here is generally translated that by the Grand Quran. If you pick up any translation, you'll see that the word wow is generally translated in the form of an oath. So just as we say that I swear by such a thing, or by God, or by any supreme being, the word by actually signifies an oath. But in order to understand this fact more precisely, the word wow or the word wow, the way it is used here, actually signifies that there is evidence being presented. So when we say wal Quran, it does not mean by the Quran. It means the Quran bears evidence. It puts forth a testimony, and whatever that testimony is, that is generally presented after these words. Either it is suppressed, as is the case here, or it is at times even mentioned in words. For example, if you remember, I mean, if you even have that short surah of the Quran in mind, which is Surah Asr, it says Wal Asr innal insana lafi khusr, which means that Wal Asr will not be translated as by the time or by time, of course, or it's not an oath the way we swear oaths. It actually is something which is meant to bear witness. So Wal Asr would mean time bears witness. So Wal Quran here would mean that the Quran bears witness. Okay, now with this background, let us start off with studying the text. I'll study each paragraph. I'll try to read the Arabic and inshallah ask one of you to read its translation. So starting off with the first paragraph, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qaf wal Quran al Majid. بل عجبوا أن جاءهم منذر منهم فقال الكافرون هذا شيء عجيب أإذا متنا وكنا ترابا ذلك رجع بعيد. Okay, Sine, can I ask you to please, in a louder voice, translate this part that we have?
In the name of God, the most gracious, the ever merciful. This is Surah Qaf. The glorious Quran bears witness to itself. No, the reason for their denial is not the one they present. In fact, they are amazed that a warner of the day of judgment has come to them from amongst themselves. Thus, these disbelievers have said, "This is a very strange thing. After we die, become dust, will we be returned to life again? Such a return is very improbable."
So thank you, Sine. So you can see this, the message of this first paragraph of the first section of the surah is very clear. That first of all, these people, of course, the people here are the idolaters that are being addressed, and their surprise is being actually, or the amazement which they are going through is mentioned here. And they thought that a warner would be sent by the Almighty from the heavens, and he would be someone special. And on the other hand, they think that it's quite improbable that God is sending a prophet to them, and he is a simple individual from amongst themselves. So one of the things that they did not find appropriate to be a person of divine nature or being divinely sent was that they thought that a person from among themselves who is a common person, how could he be a representative of God? And the second thing, as you can clearly see, is which I just alluded to earlier on, that are we after we die and become dust, will we be returned to life again? So this was another thing which they expressed, and they thought that they'll never return to life, and this life is all that there is. And obviously, you can clearly see that this ring of amazement that a person dies, he totally vanishes in the earth, his bones, his skin, all parts of his body, they completely dissolve in the earth. And of course, they would have dug the earth a number of times and seen that the people that they buried, ultimately they were just skeletons. And even after more time had passed, those skeletons had become total dust and mud. So this is how they express their surprise. That how can people be raised to life when they die and they totally rot in the earth? Okay, thank you for that, Sine. Okay, let's move on to the next part. Nida Aziz, I'd like you to read this translation after I after I finish reading the Arabic part. So it says, قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ وَعِنْدَنَا كِتَابٌ حَفِيظٌ بَلْ كَذَّبُوا بِالْحَقِّ لَمَّا جَاءَهُمْ فَهُمْ فِي أَمْرٍ مَرِيجٍ. Yes, Nada, please go ahead.
They estimate the extent of our knowledge too on the basis of their own, whereas whatever the earth consumes of their bodies is all in our notice, and with us who also is the book that preserves everything. No, the reason for their denial is not what they are saying. In fact, they have denied the truth after it has become manifest to them. So they are now in a state of confusion.
Thank you, Nida. So you see, what the Almighty has actually answered as a response to what they expressed is that how can we be recreated once every part of us is totally destroyed and it just decays. So the Almighty says that you have to understand that I mean, you people are comparing the power that you have with my power, and because of the fact that you have never seen a person being recreated, you don't think that he can be recreated or she can be recreated, and you are actually miscalculating the power of God. So look what the Almighty says. He says, "قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ." Whatever the earth consumes of their bodies is all in our notice, and with us is also the book that preserves everything. So the answer is twofold. That the Almighty says that even if they become dust and they decay, but still God says that they are in my notice. I can recreate them, and not only that, I have a book which actually is a register of their accounts in which whatever they have done is preserved. So another thing which these idolaters would present as an objection would be that how can all our deeds be once again narrated to us, and on that basis we be rewarded or punished, because there are billions and billions of people who have inhabited the earth, and each one has a different register, each one has a different account, and plus we also have our intentions. So how can there be a being who not only calculates what each person has done in an exact manner, but also the intentions? So this is something which to their mind was literally impossible. But look what the Quran has said. The Quran says, "Bal kazzabu bil haqqi lamma ja'ahum." The reason for their denial is not what they are saying. So the thing is that the Quran is telling us that these are merely lame excuses that they are making. When they say that we'll die and become dust and will not be raised to life again, what the Quran tells us is that they are themselves perfectly convinced, yes, that this is going to happen. They know this. The only thing is that they are trying to fool their masses, and they are trying to fool themselves. And what the actual thing is that they have denied the truth after it has come manifest to themselves. You see, this is where the Almighty uh, becomes extremely angry. And I think we have to be fair. We also would be very angry when we see people who deny something about which they are convinced themselves, about which they are totally, they think that this is absolutely true. So the Almighty tells us that these are mere excuses that they are making, that some warner has come from amongst themselves, he's a human being, and then the second excuse that how can mankind be recreated after it has gone into dust. The Almighty says that, first of all, they are making this excuse, and this excuse is not acceptable at all, because what has happened is that they are in a state of confusion and contradiction. On the one hand, they want to believe because of compelling reasons that they will actually be raised to life, and on the other hand, because of the fact that they've been handed down this religion by their forefathers, in which they are being told that this life is all that there is, that they start to dwindle from that belief. So you see, they are in a state of confusion. At times they believe one thing, and then at times another thing. And this is what the Quran says, that they are in a state of confusion. And precisely to remove this confusion, this prophet of God has been sent. أفلم ينظروا إلى السماء فوقهم كيف بنيناها وزيناها وما لها من فروج والأرض مددناها وألقينا فيها رواسي وأنبتنا فيها من كل زوج بهيج تبصرة وذكرى لكل عبد منيب وَنَزَّلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً مُبَارَكًا فَأَنبَتْنَا بِهِ جَنَّاتٍ وَحَبَّ الْحَصِيدِ وَالنَّخْلَ بَاسِقَاتٍ لَهَا طَلْعٌ نَضِيدٌ رِزْقًا لِلْعِبَادِ وَأَحْيَيْنَا بِهِ بَلْدَةً مَيْتًا كَذَلِكَ الْخُرُوجُ.
Ali, will you please go ahead and read the translation?
They do not believe, so have they not observed the sky above them, how we have fashioned it and adorned it, and there is no flaw anywhere in it, and we spread the earth and set upon it mountains, and brought forth in it all kinds of beautiful things as an insight and reminder for every person who is attentive. And we set down blessed water from the sky. We then brought forth from its orchards and crops which are harvested, and tall palm trees stacked with clusters of dates as a means of sustenance for people. And we enlived a dead piece of land through this very water. Likewise will be the rising of the dead from earth.
So you see, in this part of the surah, the Almighty is actually dispelling the fact that it is not beyond the Almighty to recreate mankind. If you think that they are going to decay in dust and the Almighty is not going to recreate them, or He is unable to recreate them, then you are gravely mistaken, because you have not understood the power of God. And in order to understand the power of God, just look at the sky, how it has been made, how it has been adorned with lamps, of course, referring to the stars, and you find they are absolutely perfect. There's no flaw or fissure anywhere. Not only in the sky, but if they glance on the earth, they'll see that how these mountains have been set forth and how these beautiful crops and things have been harvested. And look what the Quran says, that tabsiratan wa zikra likulli abdi munib, that this is an insight and reminder for every person who is attentive. This is an insight and reminder. So in other words, if you think that the Almighty is not going to recreate, you are mistaken. The world around you clearly shows that if the Almighty is capable of making the earth, the sky, the heavens, and so many things around you, how can it be beyond Him to create mankind again? So it's like telling those people that you have mistaken how the Almighty can recreate mankind. And the verses go on to actually tell us how these things have not only been created to show the might of God, but they have been created for our service as well. So, and when there is service, you would realize that you have accountability as well. And the thing which has been mentioned here as a very oft repeated theme of the Quran is that just as the earth dies in the absence of water, and suddenly you have rain, and then that dead earth sprouts its vegetation once again. So the Almighty tells us that you see this phenomena time and again. Time and again, you see there is a drought, and then suddenly there is this rainstorm, and after that rainstorm, we find water flooding areas, and the earth which had gone dry and dead, it suddenly springs to life through vegetation. And it is here that the Almighty tells us, كَذَلِكَ الْخُرُوجُ. Likewise will be the rising of the dead from the earth. So just as you see life coming out of death, I mean, it was all gone, and just a burst of rain made life come back. In a very similar way, if people die, they'll be brought back to life. This is a very common theme of the Quran, and it is discussed in different styles as we go along in the Quran. So thank you very much for that. Okay, let's move ahead. So now we are going to study another argument which is presented by the Quran, and I'll explain it as we of course go through it. So let me read the text of this part. It says, كَذَّبَتْ قَبْلَهُمْ قَوْمُ نُوحٍ وَأَصْحَابُ الرَّسِّ وَثَمُودَ وَعَادٌ وَفِرْعَوْنُ وَإِخْوَانُ لُوطٍ وَأَصْحَابُ الْأَيْكَةِ وَقَوْمُ تُبَّعٍ كُلٌّ كَذَّبَ الرُّسُلَ فَحَقَّ وَعِيدٍ أَفَأَعْيِينَا بِالْخَلْقِ الْأَوَّلِ بَلْ هُمْ فِي لَبْسٍ مِّنْ خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ.
Before them, the people of Noah, the dwellers of the Al-Ras, the Thamud, the Ad, the Pharaoh, the brethren of Lot, the companions of Aika, and the people of Tubba had also denied on similar grounds. Each denied my messengers. So see if my threat did materialize for them. Ask them, were we not able to create the first time? None of them can dare dispute this reality. In fact, these people are in doubt about being created again.
So thank you, Alicia. Now the Quran turns our attention or the attention of the idolaters of Arabia to another aspect. And it says that, well, if you are denying the day of judgment, you should at least see how people who had similarly behaved before them, they met their fate. And so we have a bunch of names here. These are all previous and past nations about whom the Arabs knew very well. And they knew that they existed for one time, and then after that they were totally routed and they were totally destroyed. And this destruction, as you can see, is something about which the Arabs were aware of because they would pass by to their ruins. And so now the Quran has directed the attention of these Arabs to this particular aspect of history, and it is said that these nations, they also denied their messengers. And when they denied their messengers, and this was not something out of any confusion, but a deliberate denial, then all of them were punished. And if they are going to be punished, then the you people of Quraysh who are right now in front of us, you will have a similar fate. And then another uh, premise is made or another argument is made, and that is again something which the Quran discusses on numerous occasions. It says, were we not able to create you for the first time? So if you think that we are not able to create you for a second time, at least be, be more fair. Because if someone can create you the first time, creating you a second time would be much easier. Because if someone has already done that for the first time, he could just repeat that. So you see, this is again something which the Quran discusses on many occasions, and here this point is made again. Okay, so we go on to the next part. So this is وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ وَنَعْلَمُ مَا تُوَسْوِسُ بِهِ نَفْسُهُ وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ مِنْ حَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ إِذْ يَتَلَقَّى الْمُتَلَقِّيَانِ عَنِ الْيَمِينِ وَعَنِ الشِّمَالِ قَعِيدٌ مَا يَلْفِظُ مِنْ قَوْلٍ إِلَّا لَدَيْهِ رَقِيبٌ عَتِيدٌ.
Anayat, Ayub, can you help read it?
We have created a human being, and we know also what your thoughts come to his mind, and we are closer to him than you are his life being. They should remember when to acquire seated to their right and left to acquire. Not a word does a person utter, but there is by him a vigilant guardian.
So thank you, Anayat, for that. So you see, as I just referred to earlier on, one of the reasons was that they thought that how can the Almighty held us hold us accountable when the thoughts that we have and the intents that we have are not known to Him, and if in the absence of any such knowledge, of course, He cannot give out total justice. So here the Quran is actually correcting them and telling them that the Almighty knows whatever thoughts you have in your mind. And if there is any confusion, it says, we are closer to you than your life wane, which of course is an expression to tell you that life and death, of course, life vein is our jugular vein, which goes through our neck. It's just a metaphor to tell you that don't think that God is far away from you. He is closer to you than your own life vein, which gives you life. And He also is aware of the thoughts that come to your mind. So don't think that those thoughts shall not be held accountable. You have to be totally aware of this fact. And then again, this famous thing that we all of us know, that there is an angel sitting on our right and left, noting down our actions. This is mentioned here, that they should remember when two acquirers seated to their right and left acquire. The seat are the right angel and the left angel. All of them jot down the good and bad things that we do. And look what the verse says: not a word does a person utter, but there is by him a vigilant guardian. So those angels might not be knowing what is in our hearts. That is what God knows. But as far as our external actions are concerned, these idolaters also express their doubts that how can so many people, billions of people, they're doing so many things in front of people, in secrecy, in open, in private. And how can all these deeds be known to God? And here the Almighty is telling them that as far as intentions are concerned, He is closer to man than his own life vein. And as far as these deeds are concerned, you should not be under any misconception, because deputed to every single person on earth are two angels or two acquirers, as is the word here. They actually Whatever word you do, whatever word you utter, and whatever deed you do is noted down by them. So therefore, don't think that all these things are going to go unaccountable. Okay, let's now move on to the next part. وجاءت سكرة الموت بالحق ذلك ما كنت منه تحيد ونفخ في السور ذلك يوم الوعيد وجاءت كل نفس معها سائق وشهيد لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا فكشفنا عنك غطاءك فبصرك اليوم حديد وقال قرينه هذا ما لدي عتيد ألقيا في جهنم كل كفار عنيد مناع للخير معتد مريب الذي جعل مع الله إلها آخر فألقياه في العذاب الشديد.
Daniel Aziz, please help us read the translation.
Alas, O people, you only kept on denying, and the agony of death arrived with that reality which was concealed in this worldly life. This is the very thing you were avoiding. And look there, the trumpet has been sounded. This is the very day about which we had warned. Every man has come forth such that with him there is one who drives him ahead and another who bears witness. You remained heedless of this day, so now we have removed that veil which covered you. Thus sharp is your eyesight today. Behold, our court of justice has begun its proceedings, and the companion, the driving angel of that criminal, said, here is the one who was in my custody. It was ordered, both of you cast into hell every ungrateful person, rival, forbidder of good, transgressor of bounds inflicted with doubts, who has set up some other deity besides God, so fling him into a severe torment.
Okay, thank you for that. So another thing that you might also wish to ask is if there is any difficult word while you're reading. So you are free to ask that word as well. At times there are words which are slightly not very common. So in case you would like to have an explanation, then just let me know. But in this particular paragraph, you can clearly see that the portrayal of the day of judgment is starting to be made, and it starts off with the person's death. That how when a person will die and he will pass away from this world and enter the next world, and then the trumpet would be sounded, and all kinds of details which we find at other places in the Quran also, that the earth and the sun, they will they will all die away, and these heavens and the earth, they shall be converted into some new heavens and the earth, and that will be the time when all of us will be standing before our God. And look, as you can see, it says, "The sharp is your eyesight today." I mean, you were people who would not realize that there is going to be a God, but today you can clearly see that you are standing accountable before the Almighty. And the important thing is that each of us will be brought before the Almighty. And here, actually, what we are being told here is that the sinners are being under question here. These sinners, about them it is said that each of these sinners, they will be brought on the day of judgment by two people, by two guardian angels, you can say. So one of them would be bearing witness, and the other one would be pushing them forward or driving ahead, that look, now you have to come to the court of God. And then it says that the driving angel of that criminal will say that here is the one who was in my custody. It was ordered, both of you cast into hell every ungrateful person. So the two angels who would bring those sinners before the Almighty, they will be ordered by the Almighty that you throw into hell every ungrateful person, a person who is inflicted with doubts, who has set up some other deity besides God. So remember, these are all people of the times of the Prophet, standing there, about whom the Almighty is telling them that today you are making these lame excuses, but when the pain or the agony of death will arrive, and you will pass away into a new world, and two angels will bring you forth, and both of these angels will be ordered by the Almighty to throw away all of you, especially because of the fact that you were ungrateful to God. You set up other deities with God, of course, referring to polytheism, And then ultimately, as the Quran says in its final verse, that Al-Qiyahu fil azab al-shadid, fling them into a severe torment, again here referring to hell. Okay, now let's move on to the next part. So, قال قرينه ربنا ما أطغيته ولكن كان في ضلال بعيد قال لا تختصموا لدي وقد قدمت إليكم بالوعيد ما يبدل القول لدي وما أنا بظلام للعبيد. Okay.
Fatma and Ariba, it's your turn. Please read the translation.
His companion devil said, Lord, I did not make him rebellious. In fact, he himself had gone far astray. God said, Dispute not in my presence now. I had already informed you of my threat. Words never change with me, and I do not perpetrate the least injustice to my servants.
So thank you, Fatima, for this. And you can clearly see the conversation is going on. And the conversation which started in the previous paragraph is continuing here in this paragraph as well. And of course, what will happen is that the, the people who will arrive there before the Almighty, the sinners, they'll try to cast their blame on others. And the people, of course, in those in that time, we are told by the Quran that they'll be accompanied by a devil, especially the persons who were led astray, who were sinners, and they would try to cast their blame on their companions, and they will tell us, well, I was not rebellious. This person who was he was influencing me, and he had actually led me astray. But that devil or that companion will actually throw back his words in his face and say, I did not do that. You yourself had gone astray. And this argument would be going on when the Almighty will interrupt and tell them that don't dispute in my presence. You don't fight in my presence. And I have already told you that whatever you have done has been done out of your free will. And therefore my words don't change, which means that if I have said that for every person who sins deliberately and doesn't repent, I'll not forgive such a person. And I do not perpetrate the least injustice to my servants. So remember, if you are being cast into hell, it's not because I have anything against you. It is because you deserved it. And I don't do any injustice to my servants, to my people. Had you been just yourself, had you been for people who had adhered to the truth, this would have never come to pass. Okay. يوم نقول جهنم هل امتلأت وتقول هل لمزيد وأزلفت الجنة للمتقين غير بعيد هذا ما توعدون لكل أواب حفيظ من خشي الرحمن بالغيب وجاء بقلب منيب ادخلوها بسلام ذلك يوم الخلود له ما يشاءون فيها ولدينا مزيد.
Ahsan, Shajil.
Keep in mind the day when we will ask hell, Are you filled up? And she will reply, Are there some more? And paradise will be brought close to those who fear God, and it will not be far away. This is what you would be promised with, for every person who is repenting and protected to limits of his Lord, who would fear the merciful without seeing him, and who has come with a heart that used to be inclined towards God. Go enter our paradise with peace. This is the day of eternal dwelling, and they will get there whatever they desire, and we have even more.
So thank you for that. Let's look at the description which is still going on. So remember earlier on in the earlier paragraph we had that description of the sinners being brought before the Almighty, and when they start to argue, the Almighty will tell the truth had come to them and you had intentionally denied. And now the next step is described. So you see, you'll find this description in abundance in the Quran, how people in the hereafter will be discussing and disputing amongst themselves, and ultimately the verdict would be pronounced, and the sinners would be cast into hell. So it is here that you can see that hell has been personified as if she is someone who hears and sees. It's like a personification. So it says that, well, hell will ask that, are there more? I mean, hell is created for people who are sinners, and the Almighty will ask her, well, are you filled up, or do you have more space in you? Of course, this is something of a metaphorical nature. This dialogue is basically to tell us that as far as people are concerned and as far as the space which in hell is concerned, again, this not be a cause of surprise, because people would think that how big could hell be? I mean, there are billions of people who could be sinners, and how can such a big space be created? And here the Almighty is telling us, well, it's not a problem with Him. If there are more people, He has more space to cast them into such a place. And as it says that this is what you would be promised. This is nothing new. And then, side by side, the fate of the righteous is also mentioned. Again, this is something very common in the Quran. Whenever the fate of the wrongdoers is mentioned, adjacent to it, the fate of the righteous is also mentioned. And here it says that people who were righteous, who had come to God with a pure heart, they will be told that go enter into paradise. And here you can see, my dear friends, occurs a word real assurance to us. And this is something which we can always think about when we are reading the Quran. It says, "Lahum ma yasha'una fiha wa ladayna mazid," that when we enter paradise, or those of us who deserve to enter paradise, for them the biggest news would be that there they will have anything that they desire, and even more. I mean, whatever you desire, it's something which is beyond your desire, something which you cannot even imagine, that will also be provided. So whatever desires we have, whatever wishes we have in this world, all will come true, all will materialize, and this is how the righteous shall be rewarded. So this is how the Quran actually brings this whole situation in line with people of all times, people of today, people of the future, people of the past. Wherever they are, in whatever situation they are, they'll get in paradise whatever they desire and even more. And this is, of course, a huge thing. Okay. وَكَمْ أَهْلَكْنَا قَبْلَهُمْ مِنْ قَرْنٍ هُمْ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُمْ بَطْشًا فَنَقَّبُوا فِي الْبِلَادِ هَلْ مِنْ مَحِيصٍ إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَذِكْرَى لِمَنْ كَانَ لَهُ قَلْبٌ أَوْ أَلْقَى السَّمْعَ وَهُوَ شَهِيدٌ.
Mahi?
Let them be warned. How many a nation have we destroyed before them, who were mightier in power than they? So when the punishment came, their people went forth in the cities, wherever they possibly could, asking, "Is there a place for refuge?" In this, there surely is a great reminder for people who have a heart in their chest, or who attentively give ear.
Okay, thank you, Mahin, for that. So you see, once again, the Quran turns towards people regarding the fact that if they still don't believe that there is going to be this accountability that is going to take place in the hereafter, then they should at least see that in the past there are so many nations which were mightier, more stronger than them, and they were destroyed because of the fact that they had intentionally denied the Almighty, and they started to run away and seek refuge in various places, and they could not find a refuge. And finally, in this there is surely a reminder for people who have a heart in their chests or attentively give ear. So it's like feelings at the end that, well, if you just cannot think about the fate of these nations, if you have a heart, if you have an ear which is attentive, you can surely see that all these past anecdotes, they are not being narrated to you without any reason. And their fate, the fate that they met in this world, is also not without any reason. It is because they had intentionally denied their prophets, and in fact, they ended up in polytheism and all sorts of things which they themselves thought they were not right. But out of arrogance, or maybe because of the fact that it was a family tradition, that they started to believe in these things. And therefore, this would not be an excuse. And they should always think that nations which existed before them met a certain fate, which they will also meet if they continue with this attitude. وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا فِي سِتَّةِ أَيَّامٍ وَمَا مَسَّنَا مِن لُغُوبٍ فاصبر على ما يقولون وسبح بحمد ربك قبل طلوع الشمس وقبل الغروب ومن الليل فسبحه وأدبار السجود.
Maria Iqbal, please help us read the translation.
Are they bewildered at being raised to life after again death? In reality, we had created the heavens and the earth and everything between them in 6 days, and no weariness came upon us too. So bear with patience whatever they say, O Prophet, and glorify your Lord while extolling him before the rising of the sun and before its setting, and glorify him in the night also, and also after the times of the sun's prostration.
Okay, thank you for that, Maria. So, again, you see, the Quran turns to them and asks this question that, well, if you have this disbelief that you will not be raised to life again, you should once again see that how the Almighty has created the heavens and the earth. And now, this time, it informs us that the Almighty created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. And of course, this period of 6 days should not be construed to be these human 6 days or the days that we know on earth. In other places of the Quran, we have been told that the days of God are different in their extent to the days of the planet Earth. So one of the confusions that has often arisen is that people think that the 6 days mentioned here are the same as the 6 days of that we encounter on Earth. So no, these are the 6 days of God. The calculation of those 6 days and the day of the Almighty, as you can see in some places in the Quran, we are told that they are equivalent to 1,000 human days. I mean, 1,000 human years makes one day of God. And in some other places, regarding some other days, we have been told that 50,000 human years make up one day of God. So you see, the days of God are different from the days that we are used to or that we are accustomed to. And this thing is also of note. It says that no weariness came upon us. Weariness means that we were not tired. Now, this is a reference of the Quran, which it makes on the Torah or the Old Testament, because it says that the Almighty created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and He rested on the seventh. You remember that the biblical story is that the Almighty created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, and then He became tired and He rested on the seventh day. So here the Quran is telling us, well, this is not true. The Bible has been, the biblical history has been interpolated, has been tampered with. The fact is, it's not correct to say that the Almighty ever got tired and He rested on the seventh day. And then finally, you can see that it tells the Prophet. You see, the surah starts off by addressing the idolaters of Arabia who are standing right in front of the Prophet. And now, near the end, look what the surah is ending on. It is ending on by the Almighty talking to the Prophet. And what does He tell the Prophet? He says, bear with patience whatever they say. So, the Prophet is being told that if they are not accepting that there is going to be a day of judgment, if they are not acknowledging that they'll be held accountable and they are making fun of you, don't get worried about that. Don't get sad. Show patience, exercise patience, and in order to be strong, you glorify the Almighty. Now, if you study these verses the way they are cited here, that Sabbih bihamdi rabbika, glorify the Almighty by extolling Him. This is a common style of the Quran whenever it wants to refer to the prayer. You see, the tasbih and tahmeed, they are two components of the prayer that we offer, the namaz that we offer, in which we glorify the Almighty, we thank Him. So, Sabbih bihamdi rabbika refers to the prayer, and then it actually refers that you have to offer this prayer before sunrise and before the setting of the sun, and at night also, and after the prostration of the sun, which of course refers to the other prayers. Now, let me also tell you that it is not that the Quran is for the first time telling us that these are the times of the prayer. They were already known. It is just referring to those times which were already known. So you can clearly see that if you look at these words individually, Tulu Shams means before the sun rises. So that refers to the Fajr prayer. And then it says Waqabl al-Ghurub. That of course refers to the before which is of course before the sun sets. And then we have وَمِنَ اللَّيْلِ فَسَبِّحْهُ وَأَدْبَارَ السُّجُودِ. That the Isha prayer and the Maghrib prayer, which come after the setting of the sun, is referred to by these words. And finally, وَأَدْبَارَ السُّجُودِ, of course, refers to the time when the sun starts to go down, referring to the Zuhr and Asr prayer. So you see, all these 5 timings of the prayer are referred to here in the Quran as if they were already being offered. It's not for the first time that the Quran is telling them these are the times of the prayer. The established sunnah of the Prophet Abraham was always there for us, and it had already told us these are the times. The Prophet is being actually comforted here, and he's being told that if these disbelievers are ignoring you, and they are not believing in the message that you are communicating to them, that there is going to be a day of accountability, and they are making fun of you, you need to be firm. And if you get depressed or disappointed, the best remedy to disappointment is to offer the prayer at these times and show your resolve. And this, of course, is something for us as well to see. In other words, when we feel this discomfort at times, we feel sad, we feel depressed, we feel low, just as the Prophet has been asked by the Almighty to offer the prayer in a very regular way, we can take cue from this and understand that this is how we also can become strong from our inner self. And if we face these dilemmas of life and these trials of life, then the best way to counter them, the way the Prophet was told to counter them, is to offer the prayer. Okay, now let's move on to the ending part of the surah. So it says, وَاسْتَمِعْ يَوْمَ يُنَادِ الْمُنَادِ مِنْ مَكَانٍ قَرِيبٍ يَوْمَ يَسْمَعُونَ الصَّيْحَةَ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ الْخُرُوجِ إِنَّا نَحْنُ نُحْيِي وَنُمِيتُ وَإِلَيْنَا الْمَصِيرُ يَوْمَ تَشَقَّقُ الْأَرْضُ عَنْهُمْ سِرَاعًا ذَلِكَ حَشْرٌ عَلَيْنَا يَسِيرٌ.
Musa and Ramla, please read the translation.
Listen the day when the caller will call from a place nearby, the day when they will hear the clamorous sound of the trumpet with the announcement of that day, which is certain to come. That will be the day of the dead coming forth from the earth. It is a fact that it is we who give life and it is we who give death. And one day everyone has to return to us as well. On the day when the earth will rent asunder from above them, they will rushing out in haste. Very easy for us in this gathering of them.
Thank you, Musa. So you see, now as the surah is ending, once again, it is like a portrayal of the day of judgment that is being brought forth. You can clearly see as you just start to look back at the surah, how there is this argument and reasoning intertwined with the portrayal of the day of judgment. You see, the Quran argues and reasons in favor of the day of judgment and then presents a picture of the day of judgment. Once again, it comes back to another argument, another reason, and then presents another facet of the day of judgment. So you see, you can clearly see how this surah moves ahead. It argues, it gives reasoning in favor of the day of judgment, and every time it does, that reasoning ends with a description of what will happen. And similar is the case here. So the Prophet was told in the previous paragraph that he should exercise patience, and for this patience, the best thing is to do the namaz and the prayer at the times. And then it says here that when the day of judgment will come, the dead will come forth, and this will be the day that they'll be held accountable. And the Almighty says that it is we who give death, and we who give life, and there should be no doubt about it after so much reasoning has been put across you, and how we have actually picturized the day of judgment. And finally, you will find that the earth will actually it will rent asunder from above you, giving us this description that people will be in their graves, and when the earth will be rent asunder, it will be as if the graves are going to be opened from their top, and people will rush out with a new physical form, of course. And the Almighty finally says, ذَلِكَ حَشْرٌ عَلَيْنَا يَسِيرٌ, that bringing forth people in this manner is absolutely easy for us. It's not going to be of any botheration. Okay, now these are the final, or this is actually the final verse of this surah, and again it is addressed to the Prophet Muhammad. Again, to assure him, it says, نَحْنُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ وَمَا أَنْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِجَبَّارٍ فَذَكِّرْ بِالْقُرْآنِ مَنْ يَخَافُ وَعِيدٍ.
Raheel, can you please read the translation?
Do not fret over them, O Prophet. We know whatever they are saying, and remember that you have not been appointed to force them. So remind through this Quran those who fear my warning.
Thank you. So you see, again, we find the Prophet being assured by the Almighty that if these people have taken to denial and they are not accepting, then you are not a person who is going to force this message upon them. You are a person who needs to communicate this message, and that is all. It's not your responsibility to force themselves. It's your responsibility to tell them that this is the right thing to do. And then again, it says that your duty is to keep reminding them And the way to remind them is to read out the Quran before them. Because the Quran is going to do its job. You are a representative of God. And when God has sent you with this Quran, all that you need to do is read out that message to them. If there are people who are going to accept the truth, then the Quran is going to do its work because they're going to listen to the Quran. And if they have a heart which really is a heart which accepts the truth, they will change. It's not the Prophet's duty to force them. And again, the surah comes to an end with this assurance. And this also gives this very important piece of information to all of us, dear viewers, and that is that the Prophet was a human being like all of us. I mean, he also felt worried. He also felt sad when his people would not be expressing their uh, their reaction in a way that is the right thing. So you see, the Prophet needed assurance from the Almighty, and this assurance was sounded to him, as you can see in this surah. It's not that the Prophet was superhuman and when whatever happened to him, he just bore it. No, the Prophet, of course, was under the surveillance of the Almighty. The Almighty told him that you don't need to worry because these are people who have taken to their denial. If you feel worried about them and if you feel distressed in your heart, you offer the prayer. And as far as they are concerned, you are not a person who should force your message on them. They have to do it. And your job is to just read out the Quran to them, remind them to the Quran, and then it is they and the Almighty finally who are going to contend with each other and see. The Almighty will see to them that whatever they are worthy of, they will be given. If they are worthy of paradise, they'll be given paradise. And remember, we just studied a beautiful verse here, which tells us that a person who goes to paradise will get whatever he wishes, whatever he wants. لَهُمْ مَا يَشَاءُونَ فِيهَا وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ. Meaning, people will, whatever they think of, it will be there for them, and even more. So, of course, this is how paradise has been described in the Quran in various instances. So, thank you very much. I think we had an interesting reading of Surah Qaf. This is the 50th Surah. And do remember once again that this Surah is basically addressing the idolaters of Arabia who were actually apprehensive of the fact. They were not convinced that there is going to be a hereafter, and they thought that destroying this world and recreating it needs such a huge effort that no one can do it. And how can people be held accountable? Because there are so many billions and billions of people who pass away. And how can all the deeds be brought before them? So the Almighty says, no, you should not compare your knowledge or your prowess with my prowess. I know what is in the earth. I have registered with me with all the accounts. I have deputed angels on your right and left who know what you're going to do. I know what your thoughts are. I'm closer to you than your life wane. And the argument that you are doing with each other on the day of judgment, in which you are blaming other people, well, he is the one who led me astray, is fruitless. Because if you were led astray, it was your own choice. The only thing which the other person did was that he gave you a suggestion, and you succumbed to that suggestion. And remember, the day of judgment, hell will be there, and don't think that if there's so many people who will be sinners and there's going to be any shortage of space. No, that's not going to be the case. The Almighty has plenty of space, and the nations of the past, they are described and discussed in this surah, and the Quraysh are told, the Prophet's nation is told that look at the fate that they met. They were destroyed. You pass by their ruins, and you will have the same fate. You will meet the same fate if you adhere to the same attitude. And finally, the Prophet is told that don't worry if these people are not accepting your message. It's not that you are reasoning. No, it is they are who are bent upon denial, and they'll be called to account one day. Your job is not to force them. Your job is to deliver the truth to them, and your job is basically to use the Quran to remind them to the Quran. And if ever there is something which can be of great solace to every believer, it is that the Almighty tells us that if you deserve to go to paradise, then the biggest trait and the biggest feature of paradise is that you will get whatever you desire, whatever you desire. So this is a very brief summary. I just recounted before you after we have read the text. So if we have any questions, we can discuss them now. let me ask a question that may have arisen. Do you think that today also we have people around the world who have similar beliefs like the idolaters, who believe that there is not going to be a day of judgment, and how can uh, God recreate us when there are so many people who die, and how is it possible to keep all their accounts? Do you find any similarity between the idolaters of Arabia that we just discussed with maybe people who are living today uh, on planet Earth?
Yes.
Okay, and who are they? Do you have some in mind? Any particular type of people, or
Maybe those who are free thinkers?
okay, free thinkers? So you see, free thinkers are basically who would not believe in God in the first place, or don't think that there is a need to believe in God. So we are talking about people who are idolaters. We are talking about people who worship deities. We talk about people who are actually worshipping maybe idols of different sorts. So, for example, we have people who might be worshipping various body parts. We have people who worship various deities. For example, amongst our Hindu brothers and our Hindu sisters, they are similarly people who believe in more than one God. But let me tell you that even though you find them believing in more than one God, there is also this important thing that you have to realize, that Hinduism started off with a monotheistic belief. So their foremost book is the Ved. So if you just Google Ved, it's VEDA, it's spelled as Veda, it's called the Ved in pronunciation. So you'll find that the Veds, which is a book of Hinduism, which today supposedly has so many gods, it started off with monotheism, and you'll find it's replete with the mention of a single god. And this actually shows that a religion as Hinduism, which boasts of many deities, of more than one deity, at least there is this triumvirate there as well of Krishna and Vishnu and Brahma, the three gods that they have. You'll find that they are later productions or later sort of inductions in religion. Otherwise, a religion which is so rampant with different deities as Hinduism started off as a monotheistic religion. And this is a deviance that we see today. And even if you argue with them, you'll find out that many of them still think that they believe in one God, and the rest are just idols or deities which are meant to bring them closer to God. So this is the kind of thing which the idolaters of Arabia also had. They believe in one supreme God who was called Allah, and the rest were deities who were meant to bring people closer to God. And regarding the people, the idolaters of Arabia, one thing which is also very, mentioned in the Quran is the fact that they regarded the angels to be daughters of God. So the idolaters of Arabia would regard the angels to be daughters of God, and they worship them, and they thought that these angels would bring them closer to God. So this was something that I wanted to clarify. So okay, we'll inshallah see each other next week with a different surah. I hope you enjoyed reading the surah, and as I said, if you keep this perspective in mind, that each surah has a particular addressee, each surah has a particular topic, it relates to a certain content and to a certain background in which the Quran was revealed. With this background in mind, you'll be able to enjoy more and look forward to what the Quran says in the succeeding surah. So thank you very much. Inshallah, we'll see each other next week. Until then, it is Khuda Hafiz from your teacher.